Our next presenter is Dr. Kathryn L. Braun, and she's a professor of public health and social work at the Barbara Cox Anthony Endowed Chair in Aging at the University of Hawaii. Dr. Braun's talk today is titled Social Undistancing and Humour via the Internet, and she will share the ways the pandemic has increased her digital literacy and which has also provided fertile grounds for humour, insights and laughs. So thank you, Dr. Braun.
Thank you so much. What a great honor to be invited to speak today, and wonderful to have been listening in on the past two talks. I am reminded of how much I love Australia, having been there more than half a dozen times and going all around Tasmania and Perth and the top end and Alice and Canberra and everywhere, Kakadu. It's a wonderful, wonderful country. You're very blessed to live there. I am going to try to share my screen with my PowerPoint.
That's working.
Okay, good. That's good. And okay, so I'm initially was going to try to have a very serious talk about COVID and how the internet is useful during this time, but really I think I needed to add in humor because that has really, really helped me and helped many people through this time and been made more possible because of the internet. So first of all, let me bring you greetings from Hawaii. Hawaii, like Australia, is an island or a series of islands. And we live on Oahu, which is where the capital is, Honolulu. I'm sure if we were live, I would ask you to raise your hand if you've been to Honolulu or been to Hawaii. You can see that we're just a group of islands. And like many parts of Australia, we're very beautiful. Actually, Cairns reminds me a lot of Hawaii, the landscape, the sugarcane, and so forth. But we are, I think, even more isolated than Australia. Australia is big. If you want to do domestic travel, you can, but Hawaii is in the middle of the Pacific and we're quite isolated. I don't even know if you can see Hawaii on this map because it's very small. It's very in the middle. And I'll give you a hint. There it is. We are the most isolated landmass on the planet. And our nickname is at least 2,500 miles from anywhere important. And actually we're about 4,000 miles from Japan, 2,500 miles to California in the US, and quite a distance from Australia and New Zealand. So when COVID hit us, we became even more isolated than you can imagine. If we tried to get in a car and drive, we could drive in the same direction for about 2 hours and we could be back where we started. So it's a very limited place to be in the COVID pandemic. So COVID has required social distancing on all levels. And for me, I'm a teacher, professor, working at the University of Hawaii. And so it's meant no in-person teaching. It's been no in-person meetings. Going out to dinner was something that we enjoyed doing, and we've completely stopped that. And traveling outside of Hawaii, which I think I was quite famous for, we have completely had to stop that as well. There have been some allowances for us to go to neighbor islands, but up until recently, we would have to quarantine if we were to go to one of our neighbor islands, quarantine there for 2 weeks. So that didn't really make it worth it. Now there are some new options for us that we can test within 72 hours before we go to a neighbor island. And hopefully the test will come back on time. We'll have it in our phone. We'll be able to show it at the airport. We'll get to the other side. And we may or may not have additional testing there. They test about 25% of incoming passengers. So it's going to be very interesting. I'll let you know how it goes when we get back from Thanksgiving. But there's also been restrictions for shopping, for grooming, for exercise, for everything that we do, as I'm sure you know, and has been the same in Australia. So there was a lot of uncertainty, but for me, looking back as I prepared this PowerPoint, it seemed to me that there were some clear phases to my adjustment and my survival to COVID. And the first phase was, I call it getting used to it. The second phase was just obsessing about the spread of COVID around the world. And the third phase was figuring out how to entertain myself. And then the fourth phase, which I got into probably in midsummer, our summer, so July, was embracing Zoom and Skype and WhatsApp and Instagram and the phone for social undistancing. And thank goodness for humor being the internet, because through the whole thing, laughter has been the best medicine, and the sharing with my colleagues of all of these fabulous jokes has been just wonderful. So I hope throughout this presentation that I can share some of these jokes with you. I have a whole file and I'm happy to share more, but in my time frame, I thought I would just share a few. So of course, in the first phase, getting used to it, the first thing we had to get used to was hoarding. I don't know if you had hoarding in Australia, but in the United States, and especially in Hawaii, there was incredible hoarding. First, toilet paper. There was no toilet paper in the stores for about 2 months. Hand sanitizer is still sometimes hard to find, even though some of our breweries changed from making beer to hand sanitizer, there still wasn't enough. A run on Clorox, those handy wipes, masks, non-perishable food, and water. I remember going to the store and there not being any pasta, going to the store not being able to find a single can of tuna fish. But the one that hit me the most was the rationing of the toilet paper. So in this cartoon, you can see that the squares are labeled Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, indicating that you just have 1 square a day. My husband and I never really got down to 1 square a day, but we did learn how to ration our toilet paper to maybe 2 or 3 squares ago, and also then installed a water toilet so that we could use the squirting mechanism to save on toilet paper. And it was my birthday in July, and what I had hoped for would be to get this kind of a present, this kind of toilet paper bouquet. But there were many, many cartoons that came across toilet paper earrings, St. Bernards with toilet paper under their chins instead of brandy, just all kinds of toilet paper. The use for old shopping receipts could be as toilet paper. So many, many creative mechanisms to deal with this sense of hoarding and lack of toilet paper in the United States. We had to get used to bad hair days. I really like this cartoon. The nail salons are closed, the hair salons are closed, the lash salons are closed. It's about to get real ugly out here. And this one about day 11 of self-isolation, this was way early in the lockdown. I mean, we were talking about day 200 of isolation, but my favorite were receiving a lot of these bad haircut snaps from around the world. I just think these were hysterical. People cutting their own hair or letting their spouse cut their hair or their child cut their hair. I had a hard time getting used to cleaning my own house. I hate dusting. I can do a couple things. I don't mind vacuuming. I don't mind wiping the counters in the kitchen and so forth, cleaning the bathroom, but dusting I hated, but we were very fortunate. Sorry. Our cleaning lady called and she told us she would be working from home, but not to worry. She sent us instructions on what to do and how to clean. And we got used to staying home and making an adventure of staying home. And so instead of going to New York City and riding the subway system, or going to Sydney, or going to Tokyo and riding on the metro, or Paris, instead we kind of created our own metro to go from the bathroom to the bedroom, to the window, to the computer, to the living room, to the kitchen. And all the important things were on our map here in our house. When I talk about housing is very expensive here in Honolulu. I'm really talking about a condo of about 800 square feet. So you can tell that we're really had to make an adventure of living at home and navigating. This was one of my favorite cartoons from early in the lockdown. We still haven't decided where to go for Easter, the living room or the bedroom. We got used to very limited travel options. Lonely Planet is a company from Australia and I think I should have bought stock in Lonely Planet because about Sydney and different parts of Australia, Tasmania, and all over Europe. I had many, many books, though. If you can see this bookshelf behind me, it was all filled with Lonely Planet guides, which I've since gotten rid of. But I thought this was very creative. This guide to the kitchen, guide to the lounge, guide to the bathroom, locating the front door, the recycling bin, isolation tips. This is very clever cartoon. And then I also enjoyed this one about what is your plan for the summer. This one has sound. I hope you can hear it. So the Bee Gees, also famous in Australia, having lived there for quite a time. So this I thought was very clever. What are your summer plans? Just staying alive. Phase 2, I really got obsessed by COVID news that's accessible through the internet. So every day I was listening to Dr. John Campbell. I don't know if you know him. He's in the UK. He's a retired nurse educator, and he interviews people and he has all the stats. He talks about the infection and the lockdowns and death and the vaccine and all of the different things. I was obsessed listening to him daily. But I soon got over that and moved on to the Tulane Daily Outbreak, which has more news about the United States. And what you see at the bottom right of the screen is a live interactive graphic. So if this were to work, which it doesn't, you can click on that arrow and then you would see for the week, the number of cases, the number of deaths, the number tested, the positivity ratio, and then it goes on to even show you the hot spots in the United States, which cities have the most infections and the most increase in infections. So it's a pretty scary video to watch. And then there was the Hawaii Daily Report, which I still get and I still look at every day. But even in Hawaii, with our small population of 1.4 million, we've had 15,000 cases. About 1% of our population has been infected. Fortunately, our death rate is low, but these graphics were really part of my phase 2. So that didn't last long. The news was depressing, that and the election news, anything about Trump. I really started to get depressed and I decided I needed new glasses. As shown in this cartoon, here's a couple talking about watching the news. The woman says, if I'm going to watch the news, then I need my glasses. And she goes and brings back 2 glasses of wine. This is kind of the way that I was feeling, and many of my friends were feeling during the summer, Trump's mishandling of COVID, and just all of the news and not being able to travel. Fortunately, through the internet, I learned about easy testing for COVID. And this also is a video. So let's see, I hope I can make it go.
The best way you can test yourself is, to basically take probably something like a glass of wine or a beer or a whiskey, and then what you do with it is if you can smell it, you probably don't have COVID, but you probably want to, just to be 100% sure, you probably want to drink it, and if you can taste it, then you probably don't have COVID, but they do say that the more tests you can do, the better. So I'm thinking every night, I don't think I have it, but it's really important that you stay vigilant and stay safe. So I tested myself 45 times last night, and what I found was I woke up, I felt fine actually, I was really good last night when I did that. But when I woke up in the morning, I kind of had a sore head and I didn't feel great and I had the sweats. I thought maybe I'm coming down with something. So I've stayed vigilant all day and I'm going to stay on it and I'm going to keep testing all day because I did wake up a bit sweaty and headachy. So I'm just going to keep testing all throughout today. Yeah, still don't have it. Yeah, I can still taste that. So if you can smell and taste, and you can do that over multiple tests, I would say you're okay. Cheers, guys. Keep testing, stay safe, be vigilant. Bye.
So my third phase was self-entertainment. And this one, I just got into puzzles. I did puzzles and puzzles and puzzles. And fortunately, my sister in Seattle is also a big puzzle fan. So we have been exchanging puzzles, mailing them back and forth, which has been very helpful. And also during this phase, I listened to a lot of musicals. And this is an opportunity that I don't often have, is to go back and hear South Pacific, My Fair Lady, The King and I, very big ones from my childhood, Phantom of the Opera, and to learn about a new one, to actually listen and listen and listen to Hamilton and memorize all the songs. That was great fun during my self-entertainment phase. I was less successful, however, with windowsill gardening. You can see that my Cuban oregano is a little bit peaked there, and my microgreens, although they look good, did not really taste like much. So I think I've gotten over that. Just now that there's food in the store, I'm back to shopping. And the fourth phase, which I'm in now, and which I would recommend for everyone, is embracing Zoom, Skype, WhatsApp, Instagram, and phone for social undistancing. And the first of all, you need good equipment. This cartoon just tickles me because I'm on Zoom all day with my students. Bob is saying, "Where the heck are my students?" And his wife is saying, "You're looking at the microwave. That's the microwave, Bob." And this is how I feel. You know, I'm on Zoom all day long with my students. I'm teaching, I'm meeting, I'm sharing my screen to correct their papers or having them share their screen to present their PowerPoints. And sometimes I think I'm just looking at the microwave. There's also the importance of a good connection. And I like this cartoon a lot that reminds us that the virtual meetings are basically the modern seance. Have you been on a meeting like this? Elizabeth, are you here? Make a sound if you can hear us. Is anyone else with you? We can't see you. Can you hear us? And I've been on a number of meetings like that. And especially as I've been trying to teach people how to use Zoom and teach myself how to use Zoom. I have had a lot of technical assistance from my university, which I'm grateful for. So I've learned how to assign co-hosts. I've learned how to use the breakout rooms, the chatting feature, sharing the screen, sharing the computer sound. And my favorite one is touching up my appearance. If you don't know how to do that, I'm sure that Nan and ASCCA members can help you with that. That's the greatest function of all. So this is my life. I just recently did a student dissertation defense through Zoom. We were able to connect the presenter in the upper left-hand corner, Amelie, and she even gave herself a lei. Ordinarily, I'd be giving her a lei. And then her committee members, her husband, her fellow students, and so forth are all online with us. And quarantinis have been very good. Now, the official definition of a quarantini is to find whatever alcohol you have left in your house and drink it alone. But we did not do it that way. So we decided to have online happy hours using Zoom. So regular phone, Skype, or Zoom calls with our friends and family. If they lived in Hawaii, we were on the same time for happy hour. If they were outside of Hawaii, it could have been happy hour for them. We're still having tea, or we're just, it's lunchtime for them and breakfast for us. We have friends in France and Turkey we talk to, which is a 12-hour time difference. So then we're waking up, they're going to bed, but it all works, and thank goodness for Zoom, Skype, and phone. I've been to Zoom funerals and Zoom weddings. In the summer, one of my old time friends, Phil Wheaton, passed away, and it was a shame that we couldn't go to his funeral like an uncle to me. But there was a marvelous online funeral for him. And several of my students have gotten married and invited me online, which I think is a wonderful thing. I think the most important thing that we've been doing is having weekly calls with groups of friends. So with 3 high school friends. So we've known each other since 1968, I believe. So more than 50 years. And so we have a call. We used to get together once a year and maybe talk once a year. Now we talk weekly, and it's just been fabulous. So one is a new grandma. So over the course of COVID, we went from the ultrasound through the pregnancy of her daughter to now just the other week, the birth of her grandson, her second grandson, Adam, here. And with my other friends from college, so we've known each other a little less than 50 years. One is in England and one is in Seattle. And for this one, well, we've done a lot of things together, but most recently lived with Joni through the purchase of, should I get a dog? Watching the dog grow, hearing about the dog going to Zen Buddhist kindergarten and training school, which I'm not quite sure is working, and she's not either. So we have hours of laughter online talking about just our daily lives, which is a marvelous thing. And we've been making a list to counter depression and anxiety, and we use the internet and phone for socialization and sharing the jokes and taking time to be silly. This picture is from a birthday card that one of my friends sent me, but I keep it posted right across from my bed so that I can look at it whenever I'm in the bedroom. It reminds me to be silly and share jokes during this crazy time. Other things on our list are to take care of people, plants, and pets, avoid toxic news and avoid toxic people, and take care of yourself. We are sharing recipes, we're exercising and talking about different ways to do yoga at home, sleeping enough, and despite the cartoon about getting wine glasses to watch the news and using wine to test for COVID, despite that, we should probably limit our alcohol intake during this time as well. So I have to say that thankfully, I'm so glad that Trump is no longer president. His misinformation and mishandling about COVID has really added to my anxiety. Last week was election week here, and the decisions weren't made very quickly. I had this horrible toothache, and I went to the dentist and found out my teeth were fine, but it was anxiety. He says he's had a lot of clients come in with anxiety over the election and over Trump. I'm so glad he's no longer president. And many of my friends, including someone from Australia, sent me an email, said vote wisely, and I'm relieved that we did so. So finally, in my last few minutes, I just want to share with you about the Active Aging Consortium Asia Pacific. This is a group that it's free membership, and we're gerontologists and older adults interested in active aging. So staying as active as we can, as long as we can, despite any limitations of physically, mentally, and with COVID. We have a bi-monthly newsletter that I email to you. We have webinars, and we have fellowship. Then there's the email address if this is something that you'd like to join. And our technology has allowed for a lot of cross-cultural sharing. It's since May, I have taken part in conferences in India, Indonesia, Hong Kong, and Australia. And can you imagine if I was able to fly all those places to present? Darn, but because we're online, I could just present online. We had a series of webinars on keeping elders active, and I'm so happy that Nan agreed to present on ASSCA from Australia, and we had over 20 speakers during this webinar series from 14 different countries. And it allowed us to share and commiserate, not only the bad news, but we tried to focus on the good news. So what are the good things that are happening? And we were happy to hear about good things that were happening in the computer clubs across Australia. So finally, I would like to recognize ASCCA and Nan especially. I understand that Nan is retiring after 22 years of being president of this organization. Nan is a fabulous role model for me. She has had great vision, dedication, consistency, honesty. She's so creative. These conferences have been fabulous. I'm always not mad, but guilty, I guess, when I see that she gets their newsletters out consistently every month. I'm a little bit sloppy with my bi-monthly newsletters, but they're full of information, and you have been very, very lucky to have her as a president. This is a picture of us when we first met in 2013. We were in the pink, as you can see. So congratulations. So in summary, while COVID has presented many challenges, I think the internet has really made it bearable, increasing digital literacy and promoting social distancing, deepening relationships with friends, and sharing humor. And ASCCA has been a leader in increasing digital literacy among older adults. And for this, I salute you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very
That was
much.
Wonderful. Go for it, Sam.
Sorry, yeah, thanks, Kathryn. I had one question for you. What's one of the habits you'll keep up post-COVID and less restrictions as that comes eventually?
Well, it's interesting. I think that the best thing has been the weekly calls with people that I'm just getting to know so much better now. I feel like I have less superficial relationships, even with people that I've known a long time. So I would definitely recommend that.
Yeah, I've found that with friends that live in other states and been able to catch up so much more. So that's been lovely. And any of the best Zoom or online conferencing errors that you've seen happen that you can think of off the top of your head?
Oh my gosh, yes, of course. Well, I don't know if you can tell, but this is a mirror over here on my right. And sometimes if I don't angle this right, you can see my husband walking around in his underwear as he goes past. Not him, but him in the mirror. So when I see people starting to go like this to the screen, oh yeah, okay, turn this a little bit. But the sun comes in this way, so I'm trying to not be sideways to the sun. But anyway, live and learn, live and learn.
Yeah.
The touch up your appearance one is the terrific one I'm recommending all.
I also like some of the Zoom filters and just popping that in just when it gets too serious.
Yeah, there's one with Hawaii with waves and palm trees in the back, but I have some friends that have motion issues and start to go like
fair enough.
So my husband says he wants to be introduced.
And I'm not in my underwear, so.
Well, I mean, hopefully you
Thank you for that. Thank you so much for your time today, Kathryn. We really appreciated that. And it was nice to inject a bit of humor and loved all of your memes.
And so we were chatting amongst ourselves on the chat for the organizers. And they were saying, what do you call a bee from America? A USB. And so I said,
there you go.
What do you call a bee from America that's buzzing around looking at everything? A USB-C.
So there you go.
Thank you very much, Kathryn.
Okay, well, thank you too, and take care.